Namaste. We now continue with this series on Indian philosophy, Shad Darshan, and in this narration we will learn elementary introduction to fifth darshan, that is Mimamsa Darshan, also called Purva Mimamsa. If there is any system of Hindu philosophy, this Mimamsa philosophy is closest to the Hindu philosophy of rituals, where the book becomes more important than the maker of the book. It is the Mimamsa. It is also called Purva Mimamsa Darshan. It primarily aims at giving a methodology of interpretation with the help of which complicated Vedic injunctions regarding rituals may be understood and given effect. The Vedic ritualism believes, the first belief is, there is a soul which survives the death of the body and enjoys the fruits of the rituals in heaven. There is a Shakti or power of potency which preserves the effect of the rituals performed. Third belief is Vedas are infallible. The fourth one is that this world is real, and lastly, our life and actions performed here are real and not mere dreams. Let us now see the fundamental works of Mimamsa philosophy. The Mimamsa Sutras of Jaimini around 200 AD is the basic text of this system. It is a voluminous work comprising of more than 2500 aphorisms divided into 12 chapters and 60 subsections in all. I am not going to deal with all the commentaries, but one commentary, that is, all the commentaries are from 400 AD to 1700 AD. The Sabara Swamin Bhashya around 400 AD is the most authoritative representation of the sutras. Let us now go on to the theory of knowledge according to Mimamsa philosophy. To justify the supreme authority of the Vedas, the Mimamsa Darshan has developed an elaborate epistemology which has been accepted by other schools, also the Vedanta Darshana. For knowledge to be valid, three conditions have to be fulfilled. They are: it should yield some new information previously unknown. It should not be contracted by any other knowledge. And the condition which generates that knowledge should be free from defect. The Mimamsa admits two kinds of knowledge. First is the Pratyaksha or immediate, and Paroksha, that is indirect. The Paroksha or indirect knowledge is of 5 kinds. First is Anumana or inference. Next is Upamana or comparison. Shabda, that is verbal testimony, also called Aptavakya or words of reliable person. Arthapatti, that is postulation, and Anupalabdhi, that is non-perception. These may now be briefly described. The Pratyaksha or direct or immediate perception has 2 stages of development. As soon as the sense organ comes into contact with the sense object, there is a general awareness of it as something existing. This is called Nirvikalpa Pratyaksha. In the next stage, all the details will be noted in the light of past experience. This is called Savikalpa Pratyaksha. Now we will see the 5 Paroksha Pramanas. The first one is Anumana or inference. It gives us the knowledge of things indirectly. When we see some linga or sign invariably connected with the original. For instance, by seeing a smoke on the yonder hill, we can infer that there is fire even though we do not see it directly, since it is known from previous observations and experience that smoke is invariably associated with fire. Next one is the Upamana or comparison. is another source of knowledge. On seeing a rat, one recollects that it is like a mouse. He had seen it earlier. He then comes to know that remembered mouse is like the perceived rat. This type of knowledge comes from Upamana. Third one is the Shabda or verbal testimony. It is the next source. The Mimamsa Darshan pays the greatest attention to this Pramana since it has to justify the undisputed authority of the Vedam. The words of reliable person are believed to be true, and this is called Aptavakya. The verbal testimony is of two types. First is the Paurusheya, that means personal, same as Aptavakya, and another one is Apaurusheya or impersonal. The Apaurusheya or impersonal denotes the Vedas, since they were not created by any human agency. The Vedas are supremely authoritative since they are the book of commandments and give us authentic knowledge of the unseen and the unknown truths. Again, the main purport and purpose lies in propagating the sacrificial rites. The Vedas are eternal and not as the printed book nor as the orally transmitted mantras, but as the eternal teachings contained in them. These teachings are conveyed through the rishis or sages in every age. Let us now think about Bhavana. What are they? Vedas are mainly concerned with giving commands, that is Vidhi, about the yajnas or sacrificial rites and other associated rituals. Only those sentences containing such commands as expressed through the verb couched in Vidhili, that is imperative mood, as in Swarga Kamo Yajeta, that is one desirous of attaining heaven should sacrifice, and other forms should be taken as authoritative and others as aids to it. Such verbs have an innate power of urging the hearer to do the sacrifice. This is called Bhavana. The urge contained in the Vedic words is known as Shabda Bhavana. Shabda means word. On hearing it, the person who hears it gets the urge to perform it. This secondary urge is named Artha Bhavana. Artha means utility and useful activity. Now let us see about how to understand the Vedic text. All the knowledge of Vedas depends upon the correct understanding and interpretation. For this, the Mimamsa gives the 7 steps. First is the Upakrama, that is beginning. Next is the Upasamhara, that is conclusion. Third is Abhyasa, repetition for the sake of emphasis. Apurvata, that is not being known earlier or by any other means. Phala means utility. Arthavada, that is mere eulogy. And Upapatti, that is logic and reasoning. Once the correct meaning is thus ascertained, the command can be implemented. Let us see what is Arthapatti or postulation or presumption. It is the necessary supposition of an unperceived fact which alone can explain an anomaly satisfactorily. For example, if a person is noticed to be getting fat even though he does not eat during the day, it can safely be presumed that he is secretly eating at night. Knowledge obtained by Athapatti is distinctive since it cannot be got by any other means. Next is the Anupalabdhi or non-perception. It has also been accepted as a source of knowledge since it gives us the immediate cognition of the non-existence of an object. Let us see, for example, if it is found that a jar which had been kept on a table earlier is not perceived now, its non-existence is cognized. Since the validity of knowledge that we get is an important aspect of our life, giving rise to necessary activities, this has been discussed in detail by the writers of Mimamsa works. Incidentally, they also discuss how errors creep in, giving their own explanations and theories. The Anupalabdhi has two different views. When a snake is perceived in a rope in dim light, though the rope is seen now and the snake is seen in the past are both real. A mixing up takes place due to lapse of memory, giving rise to a reaction of fear. This is called Akhyativad or denial of illusory perception. In the second view, known as the Viparita Khyativad, the error consists in wrongly relating two really existing but separate entities. Let us now move on to the Mimamsa metaphysics. As per Mimamsa, the world, unlike some other systems like Advaita Vedanta, it is the Mimamsa believes in the reality of the world with all the myriad objects in it. The world, according to it, comprises the living bodies including the various indriyas or the sense organs, wherein the souls resides temporarily to reap the effects of their karmas, good or bad. The various objects of the world serve as the fruits to be suffered or enjoyed. The relationship of the soul as per Mimamsa. There are infinite number of souls. They are eternal but undergo transmigration due to their karmas, whether they are good or bad deeds, performed when encased or embodied in real bodies in a real world. The soul has no consciousness of its own. Consciousness rises in it due to association with the mind, the sense organs and the sense objects, especially when the organs come into contact with their respective objects. This is proved by the absence of consciousness in the deep sleep state. When a person performs Vedic sacrifice like Jyotishtoma, say so as to go to the heaven, the potential effect of it in a subtle form resides in its soul and will give its fruit after death. This potential imperceptible power or Shakti is called Apurva. Since the whole of the Vedas are meant to urge the human beings to perform karmas, that is Vedic rituals, every human being is bound to do his duty for duty's sake. A ritual is to be done only because the Vedas command it and none has the choice not to do it or do it in a different way. Such duties are classified into two broad groups: Nitya or daily obligatory duties and Naimittika or occasional but not obligatory duties. These help in the purification of the soul through moral improvement. Let us see now the theory of moksha or liberation according to Mimamsa. The highest good, that is Nishreyasa, for a person is to get moksha or liberation, total cessation of transmigratory existence. In this state, the soul is permanently free from all pain and suffering, though there is no consciousness or bliss. The ultimate goal of life was probably, according to the earlier conception of Mimamsa, the attainment of unalloyed bliss in heaven. However, the available literature does not support it. Now, according to Mimamsa, how to attain the moksha, the method. This is the question that has been answered in the rather very simplistic way in Mimamsa. Not performing kamya karmas or desire motivated actions will not cause rebirth. Sins committed unwillingly can be offset by the performance of the various prayaschittas or expiatory rites. So, it says that not performing kamya karmas or desire motivated actions will not give you rebirth, and to offset the performance of unwillingly committed sins, there will be a prayashchitta. Then next is the performance of nitya and naimitya karmas will bring about chitta shuddhi or purity of mind, whereas their non-performance will result in pratyaya dosha or the error of omission, proving to be an obstacle in the path of moksha. Prarabdha karma, that is karma that has caused this birth, is exhausted by experience in this life. So when the body falls, there is no residual factor that can bring the soul back to this world once again. Consequently, liberation is attained automatically. Now, what is the nature of God as per Mimamsa? Another question that is discussed and discarded by the Mimamsa system is whether Ishvara or God exists or not. Since all the materials that make up the physical world are eternally existing, and since the adrashtas or the karmas of the soul impel these materials in the process of creation, there is no need to accept any God as the agent or author of creation. So let us now conclude. It is rather strange that a system that champions the supremacy of the Vedas goes to the extent of enthroning the book as a god and dethrone and abandon its maker, let alone even the various deities like Indra, Mitra and Varuna who are invoked in sacrificial rites to receive the offerings are treated more like the imaginary characters of fictitious drama. It may not be wrong to declare that by overemphasizing the means to the detriment of the end, the Mimamsa dug its own grave as a living system of philosophy. However, an earnest study of its theory of knowledge as also its method of interpreting the Vedic sentences will be of great help in understanding the Vedantic systems better. Next, we will move on to the Vedanta Darshana. Thank you for listening.